Hello and welcome everyone to another STEMexplore virtual career connection. Today we are featuring Brittany Novick with the National Marine Mammal Foundation. We're so excited to have her. My name is Casey and I'll be your host for today's program. Now, this program is part of EarthEcho International's amazing work that we do. We have reached over 2 million people in over 146 countries. We want to inspire youth because they have the power to change the planet. And we're so excited to talk with professionals like Brittany and other dynamic women as part of our STEMexplore Virtual Career Connection series. Now, I just want to also thank our program sponsor, Raytheon Technologies, for their support of women in STEM. And I do want to remind everyone out there, we have a lot of people using the internet these days. So if we experience any technical issues, please hang tight and be patient. We'll be right back. Also, if you are live in the Zoom connection, you will use that Q&A feature to ask questions of our expert, Brittany. If you are on YouTube, we have a lot of you there watching right now. Hello out there. You will use the chat feature and you can type in questions to Brittany at any time. We will have a few question breaks throughout today's program, but this is very much an informal conversation with Brittany about her life, her career, and her journey of how she got there. So without further ado, I do want to go ahead and introduce our STEMexplore mentor, Brittany. So Brittany, it's so wonderful to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Don't be surprised if my dog makes an appearance. This is Jake. He likes to be involved. Don't be surprised if he makes an appearance.
I love it. That is great. Hi, Jake. It's so great to see you out there. So, Brittany, I do have a little introduction for you. So, just to set everyone up, Brittany Novick is a marine conservation biologist with the National Marine Mammal Foundation in San Diego, California. She not only currently serves as the clinical diagnostic coordinator for the National Marine Mammal Foundation and the U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program, but she also assists in conservation research and is on the National Marine Mammal Foundation's community education and outreach team. Now, before coming to the National Marine Mammal Foundation, Brittany has had a wide range of experiences, which we'll all learn about today, from motivational speaking to producing and hosting wildlife television, to coral cultivation, to aquarium construction, and to marine mammal rescue and rehabilitation. Brittany is currently earning her master's degree in conservation biology and is also a professional figure skater, which is a fun little fact. So in her spare time, Brittany enjoys photography, archery, and swing dancing. So Brittany, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away and tell us a little bit more about your career.
Great. And you're going to do the slideshow,
Yes.
right?
Yep. I've got control of the slides. So if I get hung up, just tell me to go next.
Great. Go ahead. So thank you everyone for tuning in. So again, I work for the National Marine Mammal Foundation. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the foundation does first, just to kind of give you a little bit of a foundation of what I do now, and then we'll jump over to my progression into this field. So at the National Marine Mammal Foundation, our mission is to improve and protect life for marine mammals, humans, and our shared oceans through science, service, and education. So we don't only care about the animals that we help take care of over at the US Navy. We don't only care about the wild animals. We care about the health of the oceans as a whole because we understand how it's all interconnected. We care about the oceans, the animals that live in it, and the humans as well, because we're all, the health of one impacts the health of all of us. Go ahead.
I love that, Brittany, because also our boss, Philippe Cousteau, he and his wife, Ashlyn, talk a lot about connecting the dots with the ocean. So that's really, really good mission.
Yes. So at the National Marine Mammal Foundation, I kind of wear two hats, three hats, if you will. I do the outreach, which is kind of just like this, talk to people in the community. We do help take care of the Navy's marine mammals. So the Navy's dolphins and sea lions. So in that regard, I work in the vet hospital and I help coordinate all the clinical diagnostics. But when we're out in the field doing conservation research and wildlife things, I am just a research technician. So I help the veterinarians and scientists either analyze their data, collect their samples, just kind of anything that needs to be done. So I kind of do a few different things. So I'm going to talk to you guys a bit more about the conservation work that the foundation does. So One of the big projects that the foundation had the privilege of being involved in was helping out with the vaquita porpoise. Now, a lot of people haven't heard of the vaquita. It's not a big deal if you haven't, because a lot of people haven't. But it is the world's smallest marine mammal. It actually grows only a few feet long at its full length. And it is the world's most critically endangered marine mammal. So they are endemic to the Sea of Cortez, which is this little blue area you'll see down here, and you can see the red star is San Diego, where we're located, and the vaquita live right down here in San Felipe. So this is the only spot in the entire world that you can find vaquita. Go ahead. The vaquita have been rapidly declining. So it is the world's most endangered marine mammal. They're actually estimating that there's less than 20 left in the wild. So in 1997, really not that long ago, a lot of you were probably alive then. I was. There were almost 600 vaquita left in the world, in the Sea of Cortez. But in just a few short years, it's dropped to less than 20. Go ahead. And the reason that these animals have been declining is because of the totuaba fishery. So the totuaba is this big fish that you see the guy holding. And you can see that the vaquita and the totuaba are pretty much the same size. The totuaba is equally endangered. And the reason that this animal is disappearing so fast as well is because way back in the day, these animals were hunted as basically game fishing, right? Who can catch the biggest fish to win a prize? But today, the swim bladders of these fish, the swim bladder is just kind of like an air-filled sac in a fish. It's an organ that basically helps the fish stay afloat. And their swim bladders are selling for money on the black market because a lot of people in Asian cultures believe that the swim bladder of the totuaba has medicinal properties, even though there's no scientific backing to that or research supporting that. So they use these certain type of nets called gill nets to catch the totuaba, and the vaquita get caught in these nets as well. And vaquitas are mammals. They need air to breathe. And so they get tangled up in these nets and essentially drown. So that has caused the demise of these vaquita. Go ahead. So the National Marine Mammal Foundation was brought in as part of the vaquita CPR effort. And this was an effort to basically bring the remaining vaquita into human care just to prevent their extinction, try and get their numbers back up and put them back out in the wild. So this was a huge international effort. Many, many countries were involved, many organizations were involved. You can actually see that picture of the vaquita there on the right, and even the sea shepherd down in the bottom right, and the two vaquita up off the front of their bow. The mission to bring them into human care proved to not be the best option for these animals. So what we ended up doing is training up local people, using the funds for net removal. So just simply trying to get all those nets out of the water just so that the vaquita don't get caught, and local education as well. All of the supplies and things we took down to Mexico with the intention to bring the animals into human care was actually donated, and we helped start the first ever marine mammal rescue center in Mexico. So that's where all the supplies for the vaquita effort went. So the National Marine Mammal Foundation is a world leader in marine mammal health, and so that's why we had the privilege of being brought in on this project.
That's awesome. That's incredible work.
Yeah. So jumping over to the East Coast in the United States, in 2010, you see a picture here. This is the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Some of you might have heard about it. It's one of the largest oil spills in history. There's a few movies made about it. And basically this oil rig exploded and started leaking oil into the Gulf of Mexico, and oil continued to spill into the Gulf for 87 days, which is almost 3 months nonstop. And so you can imagine that this oil had a detrimental impact on the wildlife in the Gulf. And so this is my cat. Also making an appearance. So because we're experts in marine mammal health, we were actually brought in to study the impacts of this oil spill on the marine mammal population. Go ahead.
Excellent.
So
and I just want to, 1 second, Brittany. So just a couple of things. We do have a question coming in. I want to back up to the vaquita for just a second, if you're okay with that. So somebody had asked, why wasn't repopulation in captivity plausible?
So it was kind of a last ditch effort. So, there's not many animals left, and it wasn't the first option, but it was kind of like there was it was kind of a last ditch effort. And the reason is just because some animals do better in human care than others. And it's just a known thing that porpoises might not handle being in captivity that well, human care that well. And not very much is known about the vaquita. A lot of people don't even believe it exists because there's so few people haven't seen them and they think it's just this like mythological creature. So not many people have even seen one, let alone try to take care of one. So we did it as kind of a last ditch effort and we just decided it wasn't worth the risk. And we just decided to put our efforts elsewhere, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. Excellent. Thank you for that. That was a good
Yeah.
question. I thought it was timely. And then also, I just want to remind everybody out there, we know we do have some audio issues going on right now. Brittany's audio is a little bit breaking up. I just want to let everybody know that Brittany experienced a citywide power outage right before we connected. So if everybody can just be patient and just try and get your listening ears on. Brittany had to do a lot of work to join us this afternoon. So we definitely appreciate her working in a little bit of turmoil, but go ahead, Brittany.
I will talk a little slower. That way, if I'm
Sounds
cutting
good.
out, I get really excited and I talk really fast.
That's
So
exactly how I operate too. So I can definitely relate. But go ahead.
I will try and slow it down. So anyway, so we were brought out to the Gulf of Mexico to study the impacts of the oil spill on these marine mammals because we've taken care of the Navy's animals for so long, because we've seen so many, such a wide scale of dolphin medicine, that we were the obvious choices for the job. So another part of what we do is every year we go out to the Gulf of Mexico and we do wild dolphin health assessments. So we just kind of monitor the health of the population as a whole. And as a result of that, we have found a number of health issues that impacted the dolphins from the oil spill. So we found that moms aren't carrying their calves to full term. So the population isn't growing at a steady rate like it normally does because moms aren't able to have calves as often as they used to. We've also found a variety of heart issues, lung issues, and that's all because we've studied the healthy Navy dolphins, which are considered the healthiest dolphins in the world. So we know what a healthy dolphin looks like, and that puts us in an excellent position to look at wild dolphins and see what might not match up to what we know is a healthy dolphin. So that's another part of what we do. So we'll talk about it a little later. I have the privilege of working for this amazing company, and I've also done quite a few other things as well. I've done marine mammal rehab. I've worked for SeaWorld on their rescue team and their aquarium team as well. So we'll dive into that right now, but I think we have a spot here for questions in case anyone has any questions about the foundation or the work we do.
And actually, one of the questions that we did have coming in was, it was coming in from Lori on YouTube, and she asked, would you be able to touch base on your educational journey for young women watching that are interested in your field of study? And I know we will definitely get to your educational experience, but do you want to just go ahead and start on your journey now?
Sure, let's go for it.
Sounds good.
We can come back to it later if anyone has questions. So I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, so all the way over on the East Coast. So you're probably wondering, how on earth does a girl from a super small farm town in Ohio and someone who went to high school with like 70 people end up working for one of the world's top marine mammal companies? I don't really know the answer to that myself, but let's just dive into it, shall we? So I have a younger brother. This is my brother, Matt, and we are BFFs, and we really couldn't be more different. Growing up, I was very artistic. I was dancing all the time. I was very outgoing. I was in drama, all these things, versus my brother was very academic. He was a couple of grades ahead in math while I was actually a couple of grades behind. So at some point in time, we were literally doing math for the same grade, even though he's 2 years younger than me. And so we're very different, but go ahead. My parents growing up were always super supportive of what we wanted to do. They never told us, oh, you shouldn't do marine biology. Oh, you shouldn't do this. You need to do this, this, and this. They've always been super supportive. You can even see up at the top there, I was exposed to aquariums and fish and wildlife at a very young age. But my parents always had their ideas, right? My parents were always like, my brother Matt, he's probably going to go on to be an architect or a math teacher, an engineer, and Brittany's probably going to end up being either a nurse, working in medicine because she's just so good with people, or maybe even being a news anchor because she loves to perform. So while they were very supportive of what we wanted to do, they did kind of have their preconceived notions of what we would end up doing. And that's important. We'll come back to that. So in high school, I was very involved. If there was a club, I was in it. If there was a sport, I probably tried to do it at one point. But in high school, I ended up running varsity track. That is not me, but I ran hurdles, and I loved it, and I think it's awesome. So I wanted to put a picture in, but you can see that's me as the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. So you can see that I can in fact jump. So it does make sense. I also was in choir and band, drama club. I was also a figure skater. So a roller figure skater, not ice. I do still do that, but you can see the picture down there on the right. It's actually like old school quad roller skates. And then I was in a ton of clubs. I was in Key Club, Leaders Club, Students Against Destructive Decisions, Youth for Youth, National Honor Society, vice president of my senior class. I was very involved. Pretty much every day I had something going on. So go ahead. I graduated. I was so ready. Everyone was all pumped up. Everyone's like, yes, we're moving to college. We're going to be on our own, make our own decisions. And I was like, okay, here I go. Go ahead. Then I ended up getting a 2-year scholarship to the junior college, and junior colleges, community colleges don't always have the best reputation. And I was kind of bummed because I got a 2-year scholarship, free classes, free tuition to this community college. And I was kind of like, all my friends are moving away and they get to live on their own, and they're all buying cool color coordinated things for their dorm rooms, and I want things for my dorm room. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I was able to live at home with my parents and work while I went to school. So while everyone was kind of like, oh, you're going to the junior college, okay, I actually got a job in an aquarium store and was able to learn a lot just from working at an aquarium store. I didn't have to pay for housing or anything because I was living with my parents. And I got a lot of great experiences because my class sizes were smaller. So I actually got asked to be a part of this microbiology lab, which is this guy, the picture on the left. That was my microbiology professor. And he actually took one of his classes and did really well. And he invited me to work in his lab. So I was actually able to get my first lab experience while working at the junior college level.
And Brittany, I'm so happy that you mentioned that community college don't always have the best reputation, because I agree with that. I started my college career at a community college, and I totally agree. It's one of the smartest decisions I ever made. You save money, but you hit all the points. And the class size, I'm so glad you said that, because when I went to a university, I was in chemistry with 300 people. And that was quite a shock and very, very different.
100, and honestly, going to a small high school was a great transition for me, because I guarantee if I had walked into a biology class with like 800 people in it at the state university level, I probably would have had a heart attack. So it was a good transition for sure.
And I have a timely question coming in from Jessica. She wants to know, what was your lab experience with microbiology? Would you say it's worth it to take microbiology? She really doesn't know much about it. So if you could answer that kind of in generalities, or what kind of experience you had, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So the timing kind of worked out. He was studying something. He actually was studying drug resistance and E. coli. And he was like, do you want to come do this? And I was like, I don't know anything about that, but sure, why not? And I kind of just took the risk, and I was like, hopefully I don't look dumb, but I'm just going to go for it. And I ended up learning a lot. So I would highly recommend microbiology. I actually almost changed my major after taking microbiology and genetics. I actually almost changed my major to it. I just think it's really good to be able to understand things on a microscopic level. I also learned, you learn about different lab techniques that really cross over to a lot of other careers. And it's a very broad but good class to take because I feel like you just learn a lot of really great lab skills, even if it's like the lesson part of it, you don't get a lot from. I think just being in the lab, how much you need to be for micro is 100% worth it.
Awesome. Thank you for
That's a great
answering that.
question. Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
So, okay, I graduated from the community college and I ended up getting 2 degrees actually. So that was really nice. And some of my classes from the community college, I really worked a advisor specific to the state university that I was planning on going to, so that I made sure that all my classes aligned. So that's a big thing. If you end up going to a junior college, you really want to make sure that you're taking the correct classes that transfer to a state university or wherever you want to go, because I've had a lot of friends have to retake algebra because it doesn't transfer. So just that's something to keep in mind. So I went to Bowling Green State University. It was the only school in Ohio with a marine biology degree. Pretty crazy that you can learn marine biology in Ohio because there's so many oceans around there, right? But gotta get that in-state tuition. So I did that, and when I got there, they actually had an on-site student-led aquarium. Sorry, Jake's very vocal. They actually had an on-campus student-run aquarium where community members and schools could come in, and it was the students' job to run the aquarium, run the education programs. And because of the experience that I got at the aquarium store while I was in junior college, I was able to step right in my first year at Bowling Green and help run the marine lab. I got a coordinator position right away. So all those experiences while I was in junior college really came back and helped me out. I also took the opportunity to work in the herpetology lab, which is reptiles. Your girl didn't do reptiles at the time, and they're like, here, just hold this snake. And I was like, but I ended up loving them, and now they're like one of my favorite things. And I almost secretly snuck a pet chameleon into my dorm room. I didn't, but I almost did. And I just love them. So that was a great experience too. Like I was like, I don't know anything about this, but I'm just gonna go for it. Because of the lab experience I got at the community college, I was actually brought on. One of my professors offered me a position in his lab, the sensory ecology lab, and I was actually one of 2 undergraduate students in this lab. So it's a very hard lab to get into. It's a lot of graduate students, but because of my experience from the junior college, I was able to step in and get into that laboratory. We studied mostly sensory beavers and crayfish because we're in Ohio. And that's what you get in Ohio, lots of crayfish and little fish. But I was also very involved at the collegiate level. So I was in marching band. You can see that's a breast cancer show we did down at the bottom. And I was also in the dance alliance. So that's the picture in the left there up at the top. We put on a showcase every year, just dancer showcase. And then I even had my own TV show. So this is where I kind of got roped in by a colleague of mine. It was for a program and a TV station run by students who were studying telecommunications, but they were like, oh my gosh, we'd love to have a wildlife show on our channel. So it was broadcast on local TV. Once again, had never done it before, but the people there were super nice, and we're like, yeah, sure, why not? You see the theme here? I'm just kind of like doing stuff that I don't really know what's happening, but I just kind of go for it. That's like the theme of my life. Okay. I ended up learning and falling in love with it. And that was like what I wanted to do. Like, okay, now I want to do wildlife television because that's super fun. I also, while I was in college, interned for the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. So they were actually a brand new aquarium when I was in college. They didn't even have an internship program set up. And 2 of the 3 aquarists at the Cleveland Aquarium were actually Bowling Green alumni. So they went to the same college I did. And so we kind of connected. I was like, y'all need some interns for sure. And so me and 2 other girls were hired on, and I was the first ever intern at the Cleveland Aquarium. So that was really fun. We were able to kind of help them shape their program because they were like, what worked, what didn't. They didn't really know. So that was a really cool experience too, just kind of learning with the aquarium staff what worked for an intern and what doesn't. So that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Brittany, it reminds me too, your experience with the herpetology lab. I think one of the biggest piece of advice is for students out there, especially if you want to go into any field with animals, whether it's studying dolphins, whales, sharks, frogs, whatever you want to do, try and find experience with any animal that you possibly can. And so it's really nice to know that you worked in that lab, but then also that opened a door into another lab. And then that also opened a door into internships. And I think people get a little discouraged and kind of, and especially if they're from the Midwest or from a landlocked state, like you were, that you're not near the ocean. If you take those chances and you try and just get experience in all these different places, like your experience with the microbiology lab as well, you know, it just kind of opens doors and tells you what you really are passionate about and things that you can do. But all of this is, of course, experience that you can put on a resume.
100%. And I think these opportunities are also really important because it's very important that you try and stay positive, right? You can be in a horrible internship, but you have, instead of thinking like, wow, this internship is horrible, you at least walk away with knowing that that's something that you might not want to do for the rest of your life. And that is a lesson in and of itself. And that's a rewarding lesson in and of itself. So just trying to keep that stuff in mind.
And I have a question coming in from Molly. And Molly asks, would you say it was a good decision? Or I'm sorry. Oh, nope, I lost that question. Let's see. I did have another question about your high school. Oh, I'm losing my questions for some reason. Why don't we keep going and we will come back to our designated question area.
Great.
All right, carry on, Brittany.
Okay, here we go. So, yeah, and then the Toledo Zoo was actually right down the street from the state university I went to, and they didn't have an aquarium. They used to way back in the day, and then they kind of shut the aquarium down and they were working on building another one. And one of my college professors was like, hey, you know, the Toledo Zoo is actually doing an internship on aquarium construction. You should apply for it. And I was like, I don't really want to build aquariums as a career, but I guess I'll go do it because why not? And it's like 20 minutes down the street. And it ended up being amazing. I actually have all of the blueprints from the aquarium. I got sent to Arizona and they actually let me help proof all of the fake corals and all the things that were going in the exhibits to make sure they were up to our standards. And I really got a thorough understanding of filtration systems and things and how they're built from the ground up. And while I didn't really want to do aquarium stuff at that time, it ended up coming back because when I was working in marine mammal rescue, we actually had a tank of live fish that we would use to basically train the sea lions how to eat. So when we would get them as babies and feed them, and then they had to start learning to hunt fish, we would use live fish. And one day that system went down and I was the only one with an aquarium background. And so I was able, while I was working marine mammal rescue, to help fix the filtration system. So everything just kind of comes together weird like that sometimes.
I have a couple of those questions that came back up. So Katie asks, did you take any high school classes that helped prepare you for your current career?
So that's a great question. I went to a very small high school. There were less than 400 kids in my entire school. I graduated with like 80 kids. So we didn't really have a lot of, I know a lot of colleges or high schools have like marine biology club and marine biology class you can take. I didn't have that option, but my senior year, it was an option to take like advanced biology. So I took that. But unfortunately, I just didn't have access to them. I did do the post-secondary enrollment option, which I know is sometimes called different things, but it's basically taking college classes while you're in high school and getting high school credit while taking a college level class. And so at first I was a little reluctant. I didn't really want to do that because I wanted to be at school during the day with my friends rather than going to college. But my parents kind of were like, you should probably do this. It's a good idea. And it ended up, I graduated an entire year early because of it. So they weren't science classes. I was really good at English actually. So I ended up taking like English and photography while I was in high school. But yeah.
Awesome. And Molly asks, did you ever feel pressure working in the highly competitive labs?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's hard, especially I told you earlier, I am not very good at math. And so I went into it feeling just not confident from the get-go because I just felt like I was at a disadvantage. And I'm like, you have to be good at math to do science. So I don't really know how I'm gonna do this. But so it's a little overwhelming, and I've learned I mean, even still, I step into a room with like, people who are really high up, or like the veterinarians I work with, and it's even still, it's very overwhelming. And sometimes you do feel nervous, but the more I go on through life, the more I realize it's just being confident and knowing your abilities and being okay to say you know something. If you don't know something, just say you don't know it. It's fine. Everyone's, oh, cool, let me teach you. And then it's a learning opportunity, and everyone's all excited because you get to make the person who's teaching you feel smart, and you get smarter. So that's my number one tip, is like, don't be afraid to say you don't know how to do something.
That's good. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue on your journey.
Yeah, okay, great. So I graduated and I was like, great, now what am I going to do? I really wanted to do coral restoration. That was when I left college. That was what I wanted to do. While I was working in the like aquarium on the campus, I was doing a lot of the coral stuff. And I was like, yeah, I really want to cultivate coral reefs and study coral reefs. And so when I was graduating, I was like, oh, everyone's doing internships. And at that time, I was graduating with no debt because I went to junior college first. And so I was able to save up a lot of money while I was going to college for free on my scholarship. So when I graduated, I graduated with very minimal debt. And so I did that intentionally because I knew that if I wanted to do corals or something else, I was going to have to get to an ocean eventually. So that was kind of something in my mind. Living at home helps me save the money so that eventually I can go to Hawaii or Australia or wherever I want to go to do coral stuff. So when my senior year of college, I applied for 2 internships. One was a coral reef restoration internship in the Florida Keys, and the other one was the internship at the Navy Marine Mammal Program. I had literally never seen a dolphin in my life at this point, but I was like, why not? Because if you want to do coral stuff, you should probably understand dolphins and marine mammals, and that would be kind of cool. So why not? So I applied for both, interviewed for both, and the dolphin people called me first. And at this point, I hadn't even told my mom that I applied for it, and I accepted the internship. And then I was like, oh, I should probably tell my mom that I'm going to California. So anyway, so off I went. I was shocked because, like I said, I had not any dolphin experience, but that's what happens when you take the risks, right? So this internship was a lot of, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. So the downfall was that this internship was 40 hours a week, unpaid. So it's tough for sure. And it was worth it to me because I knew that my gain was going to be a lot. So while I interned 40 hours a week, unpaid, go ahead, I also waitressed. And I actually still do waitress on the side. And I was very busy, but it was worth it to me because during the day I got to play with dolphins, and being tired was worth it. And that's how I paid my rent. So go ahead. So then I was in San Diego, and at SeaWorld, an aquarist position opened up. And remember, I said I wasn't like super keen on being an aquarist as a career, but I was like, this is a paid job in my field. And this does not happen very often. So I'm just going to go for it. So I ended up applying for it. And because I worked in that lab in college and I worked at that aquarium store while I was going to junior college, I got the position. And I was shocked because a lot of people who had worked for SeaWorld for a while applied for that job. So I was doing that and I was kind of like, okay, this is cool. It's actually paid work, so whatever. But then I got moved over to the rescue team because in 2015 was a mass sea lion stranding event, and the rescue team couldn't keep up. So they started hiring people. And because I already worked for SeaWorld, I basically got pulled onto the rescue team because I had worked at the dolphin program, did the internship at the dolphin program. So they're like, oh, you know marine mammals, come on over. So then I got moved over and I was like, this is a dream. Everyone dreams about doing marine mammal rescue. I was like, this cannot be real life. Anyway, so I was doing that. I ended up leaving SeaWorld. It was just kind of a temporary position to help them gather their bearings while they were we rehabilitated over 3,000 animals that year. It was crazy. So I gained a lot of experience, but then eventually I left. and go ahead. The Navy hired me back. So that's how I got my job now. They were like, we kind of miss you, and we have this research money, and it wasn't supposed to be a permanent thing. They're like, we're just going to hire you for a few years to help us with this research project, and then we'll see where it goes. But I did so well with that little chunk of funding that they found ways to keep paying me throughout time, and I've been there 6 years now.
So you have a little bit of a different twist to your story as well.
So yeah, while we're on the topic of like taking chances and doing things that you don't normally do, my friend was like, hey, she was big into pageants. She was Miss California. She had done pageants her whole life. She's like, girl, I got this pageant for you, and it is made for you, and you need to go. It's called Miss Scuba International. And I was like, I don't do pageants. She's like, it's okay, I'll teach you. I'm like, okay, I should probably like learn how to do my hair and makeup and things. So I went as the USA representative. It was in this gorgeous resort in Malaysia. And I'm like, it's a dive trip. I'm gonna go and scuba dive in Malaysia, and I'm just gonna live my best life. So I got there, I didn't know what was happening. You can see girls from all different countries, all different backgrounds. And the whole premise of this pageant is ocean conservation and promoting women in diving. And I mean, we got access to WWF. You can see it down there on the left. We did beach cleanups, we did scuba, and it was 2 weeks of just absolute bliss working with all these conservation organizations, meeting all these women from all different countries, and just learning about issues around the world. And I was just like, this is the best decision I've ever made. I was like, I'm not going to win. I don't do pageants. Like, whatever. I'm just here to gain some experience and like meet some cool people. Until I actually ended up winning the thing. What? So I made the top 5, and I was like, well, my mom's going to be so proud of me. And then they called my name, and I ended up winning it. And something that I was absolutely terrified and totally not ready for ended up being one of the best experiences of my entire life. So if you click to the next map, I literally spent the next year going all over the world as Miss Scuba and talking to women and children and adults all over the world. I ended up partnering with Kodak and Running Wild Media, and we actually shot an entire education film in Honduras for the kids in Honduras. So Kodak paid for us to get trained on those like full face telecommunication masks that they use underwater so they can like talk to each other. And we shot and recorded an entire series for virtual reality headsets where you can like look around. And just this year, those are being implemented in schools in Honduras. I've been to Malaysia twice. I was all over Europe. Ended up being one of the greatest years of my life. And it'll start with I'll go to Malaysia and dive, I guess.
That is truly incredible that brought you all over the world.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind for sure, and it's still going. So, I knew from a fairly young age that I wanted to be a marine biologist. And you're probably wondering how someone in Ohio knows what marine biology is. I actually didn't know what it was. But if you click on the next slide, y'all might be too young to know what Reading Rainbow is. But Casey, you do. And
sure do.
It was basically a children's show that encouraged reading. And so each episode would be a certain topic, and they would just talk about books that surrounded that topic. Well, I was homesick from school one day, and I happened to see one that was on coral reefs, and they highlighted a guy in the Florida Keys who was the coral reef doctor. And so in like 5th grade, I was like, that's it, I'm going to be a coral reef doctor. That's just what I'm going to do. And in addition, my parents actually bought us this animal bloopers VHS. And Jack Hanna is like a world leader in conservation. He's older now. I actually had the privilege of meeting him while I worked at SeaWorld. So that was like, euphoric. But at the end of that VHS tape, there was a little highlight of someone who did river otter rescue, and he had brought in this like little baby river otter because it washed up on a beach and it didn't have its mom, and it was just like living in his apartment, and he was just like bottle feeding it, every hour like you need to do when you're rehabilitating animals. And I was like, yep, that's coral reefs and baby otters. That's what I want to do. And so that's kind of how I developed a love for it. And then through all my experiences, my vision just kind of morphed into what it is. So that's inspiration can come from anywhere, right? And that's kind of the point I want to make with that is you're not restricted by where you live or what you have access to. Inspiration can come from anywhere. And I don't think how many people think it's a good idea to be a marine biologist living in Ohio? Maybe one. Everyone else was like, yeah, good luck with that. We'll see you when you come back to be like a nurse or something. But no idea is too crazy. And that's an exhibit with my brother here. So remember him, he's doing his thing in the background, super smart guy. He went to junior college too, ended up getting a communications degree, even though my parents, were like, oh yeah, he's gonna be an engineer, mathematician, whatever. And if you click to the next slide, he just got voted Cleveland's best DJ. And that is what my brother does. He helps run a radio station in Cleveland. He plays at weddings and, clubs, and he just like is all over the place. He's on the radio. He's known all over the US as a DJ. And, it just goes to show that like, even if you're not the best at something, it doesn't mean that you can't pursue it, right? You just got to work a little harder at it. I had to take a lot of math because when I placed into math very low in college, and I did have to take a lot of math to get through it, but you got to keep an eye on the light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, you're probably thinking, so what? Everyone's situation is different. Why am I listening to this girl talk about herself? I don't care. But go ahead. Misty Copeland is one of my idols, and she's the first ever African-American ballerina for the American Ballet. And her favorite quote of mine is, the path to your success is not as fixed and as inflexible as you think. So even if everyone's pushing you to be a doctor and you don't want to be, if everyone's telling you you're not smart enough to be a doctor and you want to be, you pay your own way. You get out of experiences what you want to get out of them. You can be in a bad experience, a bad situation, and still learn from it and gain from it. And that's something that does take practice, but you get a lot farther that way. Just staying positive.
Wonderful advice. And what a great transition to kind of start wrapping things up with some questions. And we have a lot of them. So I'm going to start off, Brittany, with one from Lori. Lori's tuning in on YouTube. And she asked, could you please touch on your volunteer projects that you participated in or actually did on your own to also obtain even more experiences in the field? Did you volunteer anywhere?
Well, so a lot of my internships were volunteer, unpaid. But, I do, before I started doing the outreach as a paid position, I did volunteer to do it, just because I figure it's a good opportunity to learning how to teach is good. Learning how to communicate your science is good. And so I figured I would jump in on the education and outreach team and help out with that. I do also lead a lot of community projects. We do beach cleanups and things like that, just trying to ignite a little passion. Jack Hanna and LeVar Burton were those people for me, and I want to be that person for somebody else. And so I just kind of put myself out in the community as much as I can, not only the more people the better. The more people that know your name and can vouch for your character and vouch for your work ethic, the better. So, and if you're trying to get into marine biology or anything, as Casey said, any animal experience is good. Volunteering at an animal shelter, walking dogs for the Humane Society, all of that, working on a horse farm, all of that comes back to be good experience, as you can see in my presentation. You did a lot of random things, and I still practice all of those things, problem solving and all that stuff. So Yeah.
That's excellent. And we have a lot of questions about that, about getting experience, what we meant by that little side conversation that we had. So gaining those skills is definitely something that will help you to find your passions, or maybe to find stuff that you need to work on, or things that you just
Mhm.
plain old don't like. So
Yeah,
that
I
definitely helps.
100% agree. Mhm.
So I have another question coming in. What are some places that you've helped dolphins?
Oh, like the National Marine Mammal Foundation. So mostly actually I had a slide that I was trying to work on when the power went out earlier, and I didn't get a chance to touch on it. But what we've learned from the Navy's dolphins and taking such good care of them for so long, we've actually been able to apply that to a lot of things. So we do help the dolphins in the Gulf of Mexico. We've helped with the Kita down in Mexico, but we also know a lot about marine mammal hearing. We have a incredible bioacoustics team at the National Marine Mammal Foundation. So while they're not necessarily dolphins, our veterinarians go down to Peru and help study the Peruvian fur seals. We also go out to the islands, the Channel Islands here in California, and study the sea lions that live on those islands. From what we know from marine mammal hearing, we're able to help basically understand the frequencies that they can hear and then implement policies so that noise pollution doesn't become overbearing for marine mammal populations. And that's specifically regarding elephant seals. And we also study beluga whales. And then we also have helped with organizations that are studying the endangered southern resident killer whales in the Pacific Northwest. So while they're not necessarily dolphins, we do a lot of just general marine mammal health and research around the world. Yeah.
Excellent. And we have another question coming in from Jessica. What exactly is the Navy Marine Mammal Program?
Yeah, so this is a program that was funded in 1952 by our founder, the father of marine mammal medicine, Dr. Sam Ridgway. And basically, dolphins were originally brought into the Navy because they wanted to study their sonar, because dolphins have the most sophisticated sonar known to man. And you got to think the 50s, that was, before technology is where it is now. So a lot of people didn't even know, how do dolphins do it? They have the best sonar in the world, and we don't even know how it works. So the Navy brought in a few just because they wanted to improve their own. Well, then they saw the dolphins' brain ability, their hydrodynamics, and they wanted to take it as an opportunity to just understand dolphins more in general. And in the 60s, there was actually an initiative called Sea Lab, and it was basically an experimental underwater habitat. And there was a dolphin named Tuffy who belonged to the Navy, who was used to take supplies to the people that were living in this underwater habitat. The program eventually evolved, and now the animals we have Atlantic bottlenose dolphins and California sea lions that we use to just keep our men and women safe while they are in service at sea. So we train them for a few different things. I can't disclose a lot of it. You can Google it and see what we use the animals for, but they are just used mostly for safety precautions and to find. They're basically the military working dogs of the sea. Is how we describe it.
Excellent. That's a good summary.
Yeah.
Another question. So if you are working in the water, how do you know if there are sharks in the water? And I'll let you kind of interpret and
Ooh.
answer that any which way you would like.
Um, so if you mean literally, when we're doing the health assessments, we don't really encounter sharks too much. We're pretty shallow water, but lots of stingrays and lots of jellyfish friends. And we do like the stingray shuffle, where you like drag your feet to kind of get them all away so you don't get stung, but we do wear a lot of protective equipment. So if you mean literally, luckily we haven't encountered any sharks in the wild.
And I would probably say too that a lot of those animals that you said, those are the ones that you have to sometimes worry about more than those sharks.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then another question. We've got two more to kind of wrap things up before we take things home. So Sophie wants to know, would you say it was a good decision to go into the marine biology field?
100%. It's hard sometimes because, to be honest, we don't always make a ton of money, and it sometimes discourages a lot of people from doing it. But our work is extremely important, and the longevity of our oceans And frankly, the health of this planet are relying on people in the field to make discoveries and do big things. And I'm honored to work for the foundation because they are just pushing boundaries all the time, and they are just growing exponentially and making incredible discoveries and doing great things. And I really found my passion for instilling passion in others. And so that's kind of where my master's is taking me, more into educating people around the globe just about conservation and biodiversity in general, because I find that's where I belong. You know, for a while I was like wanted to be a veterinarian and really provide the care, but my passions have kind of recently realigned, and I've really found a love for just doing this kind of thing and answering questions and helping people, because all of you watching are the ones who are going to save our oceans, and all of the ones of you watching are going to be the ones who make the discoveries that are going to change the way we live and change the way we think about the wild. And if I can be a mentor to any of you, that is 100% what I want to do. And if I hadn't entered this field, I wouldn't have found that passion. So,
And that's perfect, because here at EarthEcho, we believe that youth have the power to change the planet. So
100%.
that is 100% aligned with what we do here. And I think if you ask anybody who works in environmental sciences, they would probably answer very similar. But you did it very eloquently. Thank you. Now, one last question before we go. Amelia wants to know, have you ever felt overwhelmed? And maybe could you give us a tip of how you deal with that?
Oh, girl, yes. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, and you know, I do work a second job because it is expensive here, and sometimes you catch yourself wondering if it's worth it, and sometimes you catch yourself wondering if it's something you really want to keep doing. And I'm in grad school too, so working two jobs and being in grad school is overwhelming. Is my middle name, girl. But you know, I found that journaling really helps. You know, when I'm feeling really good, I write down all the things that I'm happy to be doing. I write down achievements. I think it's really important to highlight your achievements, even if they're little. If you look back on my journal, I'm like, I learned how to easily copy cells in Excel today, and I'm just like queen of the world and living my best life. And you look back at those things and just, yes, you realize how far you've come. I think that's the biggest thing. And it's hard when you're starting out. A lot of people told me that marine biology was not a good idea. A lot. I had a lot of adults literally laugh in my face. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm just gonna like try it because why not, right? And I'm gonna go do this dolphin thing because why not? And mom, I'll be back in 4 months. Nothing's gonna come out of this. And I've been here 6 years now. And then you look back at how far you've come. And I think every little victory, you gotta believe that your passion will take you, right? If you wanna do something bad enough, you're gonna do it. And so even if you have a rough patch and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, think about all the things you've overcome in the past. Think about that test that you didn't fail, that you definitely walked out and, you know, just cried because you're like, I bombed that. And then you get back and you only got a C and you're like, all right. You know, little victories.
Absolutely. And I think to kind of go off of that question about being overwhelmed and how you deal with it, some people might not have caught it. They might have joined us late, but Brittany literally emailed me about an hour and a half ago and said, we had a citywide power outage. I have to get all my freezers on generators. The stoplights aren't working. I'm trying to get home to connect. So Brittany, we commend you. Such a great attitude. I mean, that is a great example of being overwhelmed. And look at that. Your personality is overwhelmingly positive. And so I so appreciate that. You're such a shining light and such a good mentor for students out there, especially young females who want to go into a STEM career. So this was a really wonderful journey that you took us on today. Here are some social media handles if anybody wants to follow along the National Marine Mammal Foundation's journey or Brittany's journey as well. Brittany, before we kind of take everybody home and sign off, do you have any last words of advice?
I would say just remember that inspiration can come from anywhere. And I know it sounds cliche and very pageanty of me, but honestly, no dream is too big. And I don't want anyone out there to think that you're going too fast, too slow, not doing the right thing. Everyone else is doing dolphin internships. Why aren't I doing a dolphin internship? Focus on where you are, focus on the successes where you are, and everything else will fall into place. And you have my email and my social media, and I am happy to help anybody who just needs to cry it out. We'll just cry it out, girls.
I love it. Thank you so much, Brittany, for joining us today. And everybody out there tuning in, thank you so much for putting us into your busy schedules. We know that times are strange, but we hope we can shed some light and positivity on these strange times and hopefully impart some inspiration, highlighting some powerful women like Brittany. So thank you so much again. Be sure, everyone, to subscribe to EarthEcho's social media channels. If you're on YouTube, please sure to subscribe there. We're actually doing a book giveaway right now. So if you've subscribed to our YouTube channel, then head on over to our Facebook. You will see the details there. And of course, you can definitely check out our website and learn all about our amazing programs that we have here at EarthEcho. Check everything out that we have to offer. We're here for everyone out there. Our resources are free for you to use. Lastly, thank you to our program sponsor, Raytheon Technologies, for their incredible support of women in STEM. And on behalf of EarthEcho International, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and keep exploring. Bye-bye, everyone.